Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the drama between Trisha Paytas and Ethan Klein, which occurred on the Frenemies podcast in June of 2021? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So this is a developing situation which is almost certain to change dramatically before I finish recording this video. So this has changed a lot in the last few days, and I don't think the drama is anywhere near over. A quick background: Trisha Paytas operates a YouTube channel with over 5 million subscribers. She's extremely popular on social media. Ethan Klein and his wife operate a YouTube channel called the H3 Podcast, which has almost 3 million subscribers. So again, very popular. Trisha Paytas is engaged to Ethan Klein's brother-in-law. Trisha and Ethan have been hosting a podcast together since September of 2020. It is hosted on Ethan's channel. It is a remarkably popular podcast on the channel, with each video often getting between 2 and 5 million views. During an episode that was released on June 7, 2021 for paid members, and June 8 for the public, it appeared as though the pair had a bit of a disagreement regarding a few areas, including the contributions they each make to the podcast, money, and the production crew. The disagreement resulted in Trisha leaving the Frenemies podcast. During a war on social media, including Twitter, which occurred afterward, Trisha broadcast a private message in which she used an anti-Semitic remark. Trisha later apologized, claiming the comment was not malicious, but acknowledged it was offensive. She went on to write that she had a lot of issues, but she is not a racist or anti-Semitic. Ethan would write on Twitter that Frenemies was a beautiful experiment that he will always cherish. He was grateful to Trisha. The Frenemies podcast was successful in part because of the conflict between Trisha and Ethan. They have said many things before that make it seem like they're not too fond of each other. The show really highlighted their differences as far as personality. There was constant friction, arguing. It was uncomfortable to watch, but compelling for anyone who's attracted to dramatic dialogue. Trisha has walked away from the show before, a few times. The disagreement I'm talking about, the one in June of 2021, seems different than the others, more serious in a way. Let's take a look at the nature of this disagreement. It would appear as though Trisha does not feel respected, like her contribution doesn't matter. She doesn't have a lot of control about what goes into the show. Ethan seems to believe that Trisha's work ethic may be a problem. For example, when Trisha called a segment lazy, Ethan responded by saying, "You don't do anything for it. You just show up. We do all the work." Trisha also had concerns about 5% of the revenue that is under Ethan's control for production costs. As I understand it, they split the revenue 55-45, with 55 going to Ethan. Now, as part of that, he has the studio, all of the equipment, and pays the staff. So really, it's an excellent deal for Trisha Paytas. It sounds like she doesn't really prepare too much for each of the shows, and Ethan and his crew are preparing quite a bit. So a real imbalance there. The discussion of money was uncomfortable to have in front of the production crew. It felt as though neither one realized the venue was not appropriate. After the segment continued for a while, Trisha abruptly left the episode. Then comes the big war on social media. Trisha released a series of videos after the split. At the time making this video, there are 7 of them, I believe. I was working on the outline for this video, and she released the 7th video, so I stopped what I was doing so I could watch that, and then I returned to working, on the lookout for the 8th video. Who knows if that'll come, but it seems like there will be more videos in the future. But then I just decided that I was done after 7. I don't care how many more she makes. I watched enough of her commentary on this topic to last a lifetime. And with each video she releases, there's not really any new information. It's not like it helped me tell the story, like to build the narrative any better. In those videos, we see Trisha calling Ethan a disgusting liar. Essentially, she says that almost everything he said was a lie. She seems to be emotional, upset, and rambling. So a normal Trisha Paytas video. Trisha implied that Ethan was trying to destroy her reputation. The analogy here would be an explorer in Antarctica who admonishes a colleague for dropping an ice cube on the ground because it will cool things off too much. Ethan released a video titled Regarding Trisha Quitting Frenemies. Some of Trisha's videos were commentary on that video of Ethan's. To say that his video was better structured than what Trisha did is the understatement of the millennium, although there was some repetitiveness in Ethan's video. Here's a quick summary of what he said in his video. Trisha is saying things publicly that are putting him in a tough spot. He would like to defend himself, but when he does that, he feels like he's getting attacked, so he really can't win no matter what he does. She sent out messages that were private between them, and now he feels compelled to defend himself, regardless of the risk. Ethan doesn't know what he could have done differently to maintain the Frenemies podcast with Trisha. She expects superhuman care. At one point, Trisha wanted to fire the whole crew, which did not seem fair to Ethan or to his employees. Ethan was taking all the risk. It was his money. Why would he disrupt his business just because of an impulsive demand from Trisha? Ethan went on to say that the crew was uncomfortable around Trisha. This makes sense considering she wanted to fire them. That certainly makes a relationship frosty. Ethan acknowledged how Trisha has mental health problems and he wants to be understanding, but he cannot continue to be an emotional punching bag. Ethan explained the rationale behind the 55-45 relationship, saying that the 5% for production costs really didn't pay for nearly anything. Ethan was transparent with his finances, so Trisha always knew where the money was going, and she was always paid on time. He wrapped up the video by saying that he wished Trisha well. It's not the end of their personal relationship, but she was challenging as a business partner. Now moving to my analysis. There are 4 points I want to make related to this situation. First, there was a real difference in the presentation quality when looking at Ethan versus Trisha. Very different strategies. Ethan calmly laid out his arguments and, for the most part, articulated them fairly well. Trisha launched into multiple tirades. Regardless of the accuracy of any statements made by either of them, Ethan will always appear to be more convincing. So he has an advantage there by default, just through his calm presentation style. Second point, I felt as though Ethan's discussion about Trisha's behavior and how it affected his business highlighted an interesting dilemma. Ethan put himself in a tough spot here logically. In a way, he was implying that his business suffered because of a financial decision that he made, namely the decision to split the money 55-45, involving a person whose behavior he understood fairly well, almost like he was upset with Trisha for doing exactly what he expected her to do. I don't think Trisha's behavior was appropriate or helpful, but to be fair, she has a reputation for being impulsive. It's not like she keeps that a secret. I think one could make the argument that Trisha makes a living convincing people that she will continue to make bad decisions. She is so good at it, she makes people who are bad at making decisions feel good about themselves. They look at her making a catastrophic decision and say, wow, even I wouldn't have done that. This is probably why Ethan wanted to start the show with Trisha in the first place. He realized that her behavior attracts a large audience. The difficulty with Ethan's decision is that impulsivity is a trait. It would seem like this is what Trisha is like on a regular basis. It's not an act. She truly makes decisions without forethought. Therefore, the very characteristic that makes her desirable for a show makes her undesirable as a business partner. Her lack of insight means that trying to get her to reflect on her behavior and make changes will probably have a low probability of success. Looking at this logically, Ethan had a decision to make. Set up a relationship with strict boundaries, knowing that Trisha would probably not abide by them and the show would be over before it started, or try to give in to her whims, cater to her demands, cope with the emotional dysregulation. He could maybe make money for a short while, but ultimately would have to understand that the show would meet a messy, loud, and untimely demise. It's really a simple calculation. Either Ethan did not understand Trisha Paytas at all, or he bet that he could hold things together with her long enough to make some money. This brings me to my third point. Even though I felt as though Ethan gave Trisha too high a percentage, he may have been willing to take that financial gamble. The problem is that money wasn't the only cost. I feel like he alluded to this in the regarding Trisha quitting Frenemies video. There is an emotional toll to dealing with somebody with Trisha's behavior. It's not worth the money, assuming he made any. Exposure to her behavior not only affected Ethan and his wife, it also affected the production crew. Among other things, Trisha made private conversations public. I would think this would greatly restrict what people would be willing to tell her in private. I think one thing that can be learned here is to put down boundaries, and if somebody will not accept them, then they have answered your question as to whether or not they will be a good partner. When considering Ethan's experience, who can feel safe entering into a business relationship with somebody like Trisha without any safeguards? For example, without a written agreement that specifies certain performance and puts in place penalties if those metrics are not satisfied. This takes me to my fourth and final point. One could make the argument that a component of trust is allowing someone else the ability to harm you with the expectation that they will never use that ability. If you know that somebody is definitely going to harm you, then giving them that power is not trust, it's recklessness. For people who are emotionally dysregulated and impulsive, the world is full of people who will not trust them anymore, people that do not want to be reckless. I think this gives us a glimpse into how isolated someone like that could be. Not Trisha Paytas, because she has wealth and fame, but for those who do not have those advantages, the world is a lonely place. I think sometimes people look at those who have affective instability and think, well, you're spontaneous, you're fun, you should have a lot of friends. But what we see play out in this situation exemplifies why they would not. It explains why people get cut off from support. One of the main behaviors that's helpful to those who have emotional dysregulation is setting up boundaries. Boundaries are not about being mean, they're not about being strict, they're not about punishment. Rather, they are a common sense approach that protects everyone. Those are my thoughts on the Trisha Paytas Ethan Klein drama. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.